Hi, everybody. Ron Placone here. So, have you ever thought to yourself, have you ever had a can of tuna and thought to yourself, gee, I wonder what's in this stuff? Well, apparently, as of recent, hopefully you don't have to worry that a person's in there. Charges are being filed against the food company Bumblebee as a result of a violation that occurred in 2012. In 2012, a 62-year-old man who was an employee of the company named Jose Molina was literally cooked in a 35-foot oven while he was just kind of doing his job at the company. He was cooked alongside with 12,000 pounds of tuna. That, of course, sounds miserable and absolutely horrific. Now, they brought some charges. The Los Angeles prosecutors brought some charges against two managers and the company in general, saying that they violated a number of safety violations. Now, look, I don't know a whole lot about the production of canned tuna. I really don't. I think if I did, I would probably never eat canned tuna ever again. But one thing I do know, if a person is inside of an oven as part of their job, which this guy was doing his job. Whatever he was doing inside of there, it was what he was supposed to be doing. It's not like he was like, well, I was looking for the great break room and wandered in here. Nothing like that. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing. I mean, there should be no chance that the oven's going to be used. There shouldn't even be anything close to that happening. There should not be some sheet outside the door like rule number 9, make sure no one's in the oven when you put the tuna in. This is a production facility, not a Hansel and Gretel story. This guy should have been never anywhere close to that situation. But apparently these workers, they assumed that he was in the restroom, so they just put the tuna in, put the high pressure cooker on. Eventually, they realized that Jose was missing. They did a search for him. They looked everywhere. They never found him. And then eventually, they did find him. And of course, by that time, it was way too late. He was gone. So this is disturbing. Now look. Here is what they're guilty of violating, according to the charges against the company. There are 3 different rules. One of them is they have to implement a safety plan. They violated those rules because there wasn't a good plan here. They violated the rules of for workers entering confined spaces. So, I mean, maybe what Jose was doing wasn't even something that was in procedure anyway, but he was still ordered to do it regardless, which you do hear about stuff like that happening. And the third thing here, which kind of goes into what I was saying, keeping machinery and equipment turned off if someone's working on it. That should be a no-brainer when you're dealing with something like this, a 35-foot oven that cooks 12,000 pounds of canned tuna. I can't even imagine how many cans of tuna that actually is. But imagine being in a high-pressure cooker alongside of that. So charges are brought about. Now, the company has released a statement saying that they're very devastated by what happened in 2012. It, of course, is not something that they strive for as a company. However, they disagree with the prosecutor's decision to bring charges against them, which I'm not sure how you could be. Well, I know how you're against it. You're against it because it's taking money out of your pocket. But how can you not recognize that this was horrific, gross negligence that should never, ever happen? But this goes into kind of a bigger problem. And I think the bigger problem is just the attitude towards the worker culture in the United States. You see this in many different industries. And in the trucking industry, for instance, it's not uncommon to hear about truck drivers that have these routes that no person, even an able-bodied person, could really do. So these guys have to cook the books and say that they were taking breaks longer than they were because, you know, there's rules in regards to how many hours they can stay on the road. But if you follow those rules, in some cases, there's no way you would actually make your route. You're not going to make your deliveries on time, which means you could get fired. So you hear about people cooking the books, quote unquote. So it says, yeah, I was resting during these times and during these hours, when in actuality, those people were still on the road. And that's incredibly dangerous. Take this from a guy that drives about 40 weeks a year. It's not good to have drowsy people on the road that are operating huge vehicles. And you see, I mean, McDonald's, there have been some charges against them in regards to not having safe working places for their employees. And I think this speaks to the horrific inequality of wages, the horrific inequality of the way that workers are treated. It's just one of those things where we have this quote right to work mentality, where it's like, well, hey, you got a job, be happy you got a job. The situation, whatever it may be, is completely secondary. So if you're not getting a living wage, oh well. If you're not in a safe environment, oh well. Now, is Bumblebee that type of employer? I really don't know one way or another. But in this case, it was horrific negligence. And the fact that this situation was even able to occur raises a huge red flag. The fact that you would have someone inside an oven that was doing it as part of their job, and during a time where the oven could be used. I mean, that's just obvious 101. That should never, ever happen. That oven maintenance or whatever Jose was in there for, that should be done at a time where there's no chance whatsoever that the oven would ever be used. And why were they in this situation? Well, we can't say for sure, but I think it's pretty easy to speculate that it probably had something to do with saving time, or something to do with making sure that the tuna was cooked by a certain time to meet a certain quota, and safety was thrown by the wayside. And look what happened to this person. This person was literally cooked with 12,000 pounds of tuna. So I, for one, am pretty glad that there's going to be charges against Bumblebee. And I think in situations like this, or even close to this, companies should be held accountable. Companies should not have an incentive to not provide a safe workplace for their employees, for not providing adequate safety procedures for their employees. That should be, it's a cliche, but it's absolutely true. Safety first. In this case, safety was definitely not first. And companies need to be held accountable. And I hope in this case, Bumblebee is held accountable. The prosecution is going after the company and two managers. And I'm going to say it seems like rightfully so. This is Ron Placone signing out.